Hey, this is Jason from Today on VHS. Sorry it's taking a while to release our next video. We are currently working on a set that is actually almost done. We want to try to do our best with these next topics. But for now, I thought I'd release this tidbit on turn-based fighting and my thoughts on it while you wait. Thanks.
Final Fantasy VII Remake features a hybrid gameplay system that merges real-time action with strategic command-based combat. Strategic command-based combat. Strategic command-based combat. Strategic command-based.
I guarantee you he has never played a Final Fantasy game in his life.
We're sure to see some familiar faces.
Don't cheer for Barrett, of course Barrett's in the game. So this is where we are now, Final Fantasy VII Remake. This kind of reminds me of a quote at the end of that movie, Advent Children. It's a terrible movie, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
Stay where you belong. In my memories.
I will never be a memory.
I always saw that quote as a statement of Final Fantasy VII. Square Enix feels like they will never be able to succeed the game, and they will always be haunted by its success. Now Sephiroth's back. Again. I don't want to be unfair in any way, this game isn't out yet and it could still be good, but as a Final Fantasy fan I'm a little scared of the direction they've been going. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate Square Enix and I'm not a hateful person, but this is something I've always wanted to give my opinion on. With all of these changes, it kind of feels like turn-based fighting is becoming a dying breed. When trying to compare the original Final Fantasy to this remake, it's kind of laughable. Who am I to tell people that this means so much more than this?
あるんですけど、そういう要素を自分なりにユーザーに楽しんでもらおうと思った時に、そのリアルタイムでどんどん進んでいってしまうんではなくて、あと一発でボムが自爆しちゃうから、そうならないようにするには自分はどうしたらいいんだろうかってこうゆっくり考えてほしいと思ったんですね。
For starters, each press of the square button is a swing of Cloud's Buster Sword. Cloud attacks, dodges, and blocks all in real time.
I feel a little insulted when I hear this man talk. He explains this new battle system as if the old battle system was a problem. And that's kind of the issue here. I do understand that they've added in some bastardized version of ATB, but I really don't expect them to do it right. Final Fantasy 15 also had a feature like this and it didn't help too much. It does feel like a lot of people nowadays do see this kind of battle system as a problem. And Square Enix wants to adapt for more cash, like a product made for millions of people. But it almost feels disrespectful for me. And I'm sure there are many Final Fantasy fans that feel the same way. I saw this gameplay and over all the obnoxious yelling and cheers, I almost wanted to cry. If they can make this all work, then more power to them, but I don't know. It's a game design concept that I don't think can be recreated with this kind of action without frustration. It's the same exact thing that happened on Final Fantasy 15, and 15 was a frustrating disaster. The controls were clunky, there are too many extra animations that waste your time when trying to do quick maneuvers, they put the action bar far away from the dodge button so it's easy to fumble between the two, the boss fights were missing the strategic elements that made Final Fantasy great, the map is an empty wasteland full of quests, the driving in the car was boring, the characters repeated lines all the time, cup noodles.
If you take something already delicious like cup noodles and add in the finest, freshest ingredients, what do you get? The ultimate flavor experience.
The game as a whole felt unfinished. After the Leviathan fight, the rest of the game takes place on a train. You would get off on random places and just fight people. Then a bunch of time passes and all the monsters become overleveled, as if they didn't finish the game. And it gets to the point where you have to skip monsters to get to the final boss, who is easier than the monsters before him for some reason. A lot of the symptoms felt like an unfinished product. And when I first saw the initial gameplay for Final Fantasy VII, I just had flashbacks of 15. And all these fucking people are cheering!
The use of his
Stop
iconic
cheering! What the fuck are you doing? But I have to give Square Enix credit. There are too many companies out there that have their pre-established successful franchise and never change the formula when releasing a new one. Nintendo releases the same stuff every time and people go nuts. And Final Fantasy is a great example of going against that ideology. I'm not saying I don't like games that don't bother changing the formula. Dragon Quest XI is one of my favorite games of all time. They don't even bother changing the 8-bit music samples. But just imagine how terrifying it is to change the formula of such a great franchise like Final Fantasy. And they've been doing this for years, rather it be by design, gameplay, or character progression. Many Final Fantasy fans would agree that Final Fantasy VI is technically the unbroken formula to the franchise, but they didn't just keep it that way. Final Fantasy VII had materia, Final Fantasy VIII had the junction system, Final Fantasy XII was the most ambitious game in the franchise. It had a battle system so unique it fundamentally changed everything. But here's the bottom line.
Break it down for me. Oh, right now, while it's fresh.
All right.
Every Final Fantasy game shared the same features: theming and strategy. It was always theming and strategy over action. The bosses in Final Fantasy are damn near iconic, and the turn-based fighting played a huge part in that. The bosses in Final Fantasy 15 were like a joke. You just wailed at Titan until you glitched through his arm, and then you just used a potion every time you needed health. Now this is the real meat and bones of the video.
Break it down for me.
Turn-based fighting. It's almost like a game of chess, or more like a trading card game. And if you've played any trading card game, you probably know what I mean when I say theming. In almost every card game, there are certain decks that have themes. In the Dragon Ball Super trading card game, you build up your energy, and then you try to wipe out your opponent in one big move, just like the TV show. Theming gets thrown out of the window when you have a combat system like this. It's damn near non-existent at this point. With this new battle system, I can only imagine it being like playing chess, but there are no turns. You and your opponent just fucking go at it. In a situation like this, it becomes less about strategy and about how many pieces can we wipe from the board as quickly as possible. Now when it comes to theming, I wanted to talk about a fight that I really enjoyed. We're probably never gonna see a fight like this ever again in the franchise. The Yunalesca fight on Final Fantasy X. In the world of Final Fantasy X, there's a big baddie named Sin, who terrorizes society. Sin! Every once in a while, a summoner sacrifices themselves to postpone Sin's destruction, thus bringing peace for a couple years. But Sin always returns, and a summoner must always die for peace. It's a vicious cycle. This is all based around a religion that promises hope to its people by teaching and breeding summoners for sacrifice. Tidus, our main character, falls in love with his summoner Yuna, due to an awkward laughing scene.
Probably shouldn't laugh.
And together they decide to stop the cycle once and for all. Of course, there's a lot more to the story and it's all very overly dramatic, but that's all you really need to know for now. Yunalesca is an omnipotent being that performs the ritual to postpone Sin. She believes that with death, by death I refer to the summoners, she is curing the people.
You will soon be freed of worry and pain. For once you call forth the final Aeon, your life will end. Death is the ultimate and final liberation,
thus providing hope for society. But Yuna decides to try and break the wheel. They decide to fight for life. Society will be reborn into a new world order that will deny the teachings of Yevon.
I live for the people of Spira, and would have gladly died for them, but no more. The final summoning is a false tradition that should be thrown away.
So, the developers of Final Fantasy looked at this and decided to merge this concept with the boss battle itself, creatively designing the battle with the theme of the story.
これはこう別物じゃなくてこうシナリオ側にすごい寄せた感じで作っていくっていう、最初の指針からこう今のじゃあ今までのこう割と見せ場だった召喚獣もこう世界観に合わせたようなこう。
If you played Final Fantasy X, you know that this fight is very tricky. I mean, it isn't Gagazet Seymour, but if you don't know what you're doing, it can be very difficult. But it can also be very easy if you change the way you normally fight. I guess this could be seen as a how to beat Yunalesca video too. In the franchise, there's a status called Zombie. Basically, anyone who is hit with Zombie cannot be healed. Attempting to heal a person with this status will end up damaging or killing them. Yunalesca basically instantly zombifies your entire party. After this, she will start casting Curaga. It's a little strange for a boss to be casting Curaga to your party. So a move that would normally cure your characters ends up killing them. You see, this is why I love turn-based fighting games.
Death is the ultimate and final liberation.
Yunalesca believes that she is curing by killing. Really, Yunalesca's go-to move is Cure. So the average player will try curing this status by using Holy Water. However, Yunalesca will also use a move called Mega Death.
Hello, me. Meet the real me.
Anyone who is not debuffed by zombie instantly dies. AKA, if you successfully get your entire party out of zombie mode, she will instantly wipe your team. So the secret to fighting Yunalesca is to let your characters die while in zombie mode. The reason is because you will have more time to attack and deal damage while under the zombie status without getting wiped by Megadeath. Then once a character falls and gets revived, the zombie gets removed and you are allowed to heal them back to full health. Having that extra time to deal damage is paramount. By waiting too long, you will end up running out of MP or Phoenix Downs. But the point is, the battle becomes a bit more black and white. The entire battle becomes less about healing and more about reviving. Life versus death. It's fitting when you have a party fighting for life versus a god fighting for death. Then finally, Yuna and her team wants to change the world. A rebirth, if you will. As I said before, the most efficient way of healing your characters is to revive them. Without the zombie status, you can fully heal them. This matches with the theme of being reborn. The only way for the world to be fully healed is to start over. There is just so much love and thought that went into these boss fights. And there are many examples in the genre that execute stuff like this. I feel like there's a lot of potential when it comes to theming. There's a lot of potential that can come from turn-based fighting. But with this new system, we may not see this anymore. No more are the times of taking a step back and analyzing the situation. No more are the times of theming or merging character elements to the battle. No more satisfaction of outsmarting the battle with wits rather than reflex. I just find it all very depressing. But here I am talking shit about Final Fantasy VII, and when the game comes out, I'm probably gonna be the first asshole in line. The game could pull it off and do it very well. Lastly, I'd like to just thank everyone for listening, and I want to know what you guys think of this new direction.